What, we some kind of Suicide Squad?
I am Iron Man.
You are a toy!
I live my life a quarter mile at a time.
Server Anakin! I have the high ground!
I'm gonna steal the Declaration of Independence.
I'm simply saying that life, finds a way.
Welcome back to the Big Movie Boys podcast, the only podcast that sounds the same when you listen to it forwards as it does backwards. I'm your host, Jeremy Baum, and with me as always is It's Ned.
We live in a twilight world.
And Bob.
No friends at dusk.
This week we'll finally be reviewing what has possibly been our most anticipated movie since starting this podcast, that of course being Tenet. But before we get to that, we've got some news to run through, and I was told we also had to watch a Christmas movie this week, so we'll be discussing what we determined to be the best Christmas movie.
He's already being pessimistic.
During our last episode.
Jeremy, you do realize you're the only person in the world that thinks it's weird to do a Christmas movie right now?
I don't think it's weird, but the fact that Christmas came early to me this week when Tenet came out, I didn't need this personally. But
I think you're the only person that didn't need a little Christmas in December on a movie podcast. Little Christmas movie.
Jeremy is the James Caan of this podcast.
Boys, how does it feel? The first just trio podcast since the end of October.
Yeah,
I'm glad we're all excited.
Bob always goes first, so fuck it. But no, I said that right before we started taping, and it feels weird. We're not having to kind of walk someone through how we do it. Not like it's that difficult, but it's fun. It's good to be back with just you guys.
Yeah, it feels weird. How long has it been?
Monday, October 26th was the last episode that aired with just the three of us, I believe.
Jesus Christ, that feels like a million years ago. Yeah, it's good to be back to the old crew. Get all those shitheads off the podcast.
Yeah, it's more professional now.
Well, a little peek into the future, we may be hearing from those, as Bob called them, shitheads, again, come January, when we do our end-of-the-year awards. So keep an eye out for that. That'll be coming soon. But in the meantime, got a couple bits of news from this previous week that I thought would be fun to discuss. The first one being that 25 new films were added to the National Film Registry. If you're not familiar, each year the Library of Congress inducts 25 films nominated by the public into the National Film Registry. As of 2020, the registry has reached 800 movies that will be preserved by the National Archive. This year's list included a record number of films directed by women, 9, and by people of color, 7. To be inducted, a movie must be at least 10 years old and must be culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. But just a couple movies off this list, basically the only ones I'd heard of before. You got A Clockwork Orange, Grease, The Blues Brothers, Shrek, The Hurt Locker, and The Dark Knight. Do we consider these ones to be culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant?
I'm a little confused how Clockwork Orange and Grease haven't already been put to it, because those are old, but Dark Knight, huge one. I do have a question though. So they're historically preserved? What do you mean? We put a VHS tape in a fucking locker room somewhere? What do you mean historically preserved?
Basically, they get added to the Library of Congress. So I guess if a nuke goes off and some future civilization discovers America again and stumbles across the Library of Congress.
Dark Knight out there?
Yeah, they'll find these 800 movies.
That's pretty cool to think about. But yeah, all of them sound right, except for maybe Shrek. But yeah, pretty cool. I just feel like some of those older movies I'm shocked they weren't already on it. Dark Knight is probably the one that impacted me the most culturally and whatever the fuck other parameters need to be included.
Pleasantly, yeah. I don't even know what it was. I'm just looking at the list, Jared, and there's a movie from 1913 on here. That's where it starts, and then it goes all the way up to 2010. That's wild because you'd think, almost like the Hall of Fame in football or baseball or basketball or anything like that, you'd think you could time out. But apparently 107 years later, Suspense has made the cut. That's wild to me.
What year was Dark Knight? Was that 2008?
Yeah, that one's 2008, and then there's a movie in 2010 called Freedom Riders that I haven't heard of. But
a first ballot.
I guess Freedom Riders is first ballot. Dark Knight on its third ballot, but yeah, that's pretty wild.
I hear that a suspense film, it really takes 107 years for you to really get the plot.
Understand it, yeah.
It was the Tenet of its day, is what I hear.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Of the 25 movies, I've only seen 4 of them. Granted, there's probably more in the archive that I've seen, but from this year's list, and I've only heard of like 2 others. So I don't know. Shrek does seem to be the one that sticks out on this list. I guess you do it for the memes.
How often? Once a year do these get elected?
Yeah. Did you listen to anything I said when I introduced this?
No, sorry, I was doing something else.
Yeah, once a year. You want me to read it again? 25 films.
I just want. It shouldn't be the public. Is that what it was, Jared? The public
Nominated by the public, correct.
nominated by. I feel like when are we gonna just get it down to like an academy where us 3 get to vote in 25 movies a year? That's what I want it to be.
Should we start the National Big Movie Boys archive and every year come up with 25 movies?
We might have to do that and start that on next week's pod. I really like that idea.
We'll have to shorten the time period that it has to be out for to like a month, though, because I don't think we're going to be here in 10 years.
Well, maybe we can do some version of that in the near future. We'll have to brainstorm a little bit, see what that'll look like. But whatever we do, we better hope it is COVID compliant, or otherwise Tom Cruise is gonna snap on us. Did you guys hear any of his COVID rant?
Yeah, I listened to the whole thing. Pretty cool, actually. I kind of liked it.
I felt like I almost wish I could have been in the shoes of one of the guys he was yelling at and just like experience that fear. It's just like Tom Cruise, like the most famous, probably top 5 most famous actors in the world ever, and he doesn't even like know what regular people have to go through. And Tom Cruise even gets like, "Hey, let's put our masks on here." Pretty great seeing that.
He was fucking pissed.
It's like when Christian Bale went off, but like Christian Bale went off just because he was like in a bad mood. At least like Tom Cruise, like he was on the right side of this one, even though he was like a dick doing it. But it was pretty awesome.
So there seems to be kind of 2 camps and then a middling area where people either think, he created a hostile work environment, he went too far. There's people saying he said what he said, and what he said was right. And then there's people in the middle who are like, well, what he said was right, but there's a better way of doing it. Do you guys want to stake your ground and share which side of the aisle you're on this one?
I'd say that I think he said what had to be said, and it doesn't matter the way he did it. I think the way he did it, good, forceful, fuck you to your cast and crew, let them know who's boss. Have them fucking take it seriously, Like, I don't think there's any better way of doing it. If it came off as a dickhead, it's, kind of a thing that you should be a dickhead about because it's very serious. So I'm very happy about this.
I have to completely disagree with you. I don't think he went far enough. They should have been killed. I don't see a way, though. He gave him a second chance, too, right?
They actually should have been. No, remember what he said? He's just like, if I see it again, they're fucking gone. Like,
I don't think he meant off the project.
Yeah,
he meant
like
he's gonna
heartbeat.
Kill him. Yeah. Jared, what about you? What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, if we're approaching a year into this pandemic and people still don't know to put their masks on and it's jeopardizing this entire film and, people's livelihoods, then yeah, sure. Tom Cruise wants to go off on him. I'm all for it. Is he also like a crazy Scientologist or whatever? Yeah. But, in this instance, sure, I'm with you, Tom. Go for it.
When you saw the initial headline, I just saw like Tom Cruise freaks out on crew. I was like, oh, Jesus fucking Christ. And then I see what it was for. I'm just like, oh, okay, cool. Go for it, bro.
I can get behind that. Another bit of news doesn't impact me personally too much. I'm wondering if this will improve your guys' lives at all. HBO Max is now officially on Roku and also PS5, I believe, but I know that won't impact either of you. But does HBO Max coming to Roku help you guys in any way?
For me, Bob, I don't think Bob has an HBO Max account. I think each time we pick a movie from there, he asks us for an account. But for me, I'm excited for it to be on there. I have to watch HBO Max just sometimes. I haven't had my Xbox recently, so I've had to watch it through just my laptop, and it's just a pain in the ass when you want to watch something on the laptop. But so I'm excited for this to just get back to watching it on the big Roku TV. I don't know why they didn't plan this out to have it out on Roku when it launched, because it kind of like hinders its ability to just be reached by all audiences. But no doubt, I think this is maybe it's just another way to get more them to be in the headlines once again. But yeah, I'm excited for this.
I have a Roku, and I have a smart TV as well, but it's an LG smart TV, and it sucks ass. And I'm pretty sure the HBO Max app isn't on LG smart TVs either. But I have a Roku, and yeah, once one of you guys gives me your fucking login, then I'll be on it all day. Like I'll download that shit right away. Is there anything that's still not on? Like any major things.
That and PS5 are the last two that I knew of personally, and
LG Smart TV.
right, yeah, there's
They
a
don't have
really vocal audience for the LG Smart TV community.
They don't have shit. They don't even have the ESPN app on there.
Yeah, I think I've had to deal with LG Smart TVs, and they have nothing. It's just like you have Netflix, Hulu, and like Prime, and it's like good luck finding
They
anything
suck
else.
ass. Yeah, if you want to watch anything, yeah, fuck you, buddy.
All right, and then the last bit of news here, came across a headline that said Steve-O and Johnny Knoxville hospitalized on Jackass 4 following treadmill accident. And if you were like me, you read that and thought, they're making a Jackass 4. Interesting. What do we think
I'm
of
amped.
Jackass 4 coming out?
I'm amped because you know what I've been doing recently is just watching old clips from like the Jackass TV show, which was like early 2000s. It might have even been like 99 when it came out, honestly. And I've been watching clips from like Jackass 1 and Jackass 2. And oh my God, I really think like, I mean, because, okay, for you guys, when's the last time you watched anything from Jackass?
It's been a minute.
Never.
Really? You've never seen Jackass? Oh, but
Never any of the movies.
It's honestly like so funny to go. Like I hadn't seen it in probably, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years. I haven't even seen a Jackass skit. And I went back and this just like came up on my YouTube. So I just started watching like old bits from them and I'm literally dying. They were so like ahead of their time. Like that, like whatever they were doing was so funny back in the day. And it kind of got old. I'll be honest. They came out with like, I don't know, there's Jackass 3, Jackass 3.5, Jackass 2.5. Like they had all those ridiculous amounts of movies that came out. And not all of them went to theaters, but like they were definitely like oversaturated. Like there was too much Jackass in that time period. And like a lot of it like wasn't as funny because you were seeing their shit all the time. But when you haven't seen it in a while, it is truly hysterical to go back and watch some of their funnier things. So I feel like 4 will be interesting. I mean, just because, you know, it'll be cool to see them back because they're all pretty famous. Not pretty famous. They're all like an average D to C-list celebrity, except for like Johnny Knoxville. But it'll be cool to see them like back, you know, in theaters. And it'll be interesting to see that now that they're really, really old. I mean, obviously old enough that they went to the hospital the first day they filmed. So I think this will be a common occurrence that continues throughout filming is they're going to act like they did when they were in their early 20s and probably end up in the hospital.
Ben, is this going to be the entry into the series that gets you to finally watch it?
No, I probably won't watch this. You know, this is your guys' thing. I know you guys, Bob, you and Jeremy, you guys have a podcast called Big Jackass Boys. So that's for you guys. This will not get me to watch it.
Ben, go back and watch
any of them.
Go back. If I had to recommend anything to watch, like actually, because you don't really need to see this unless, like, I don't know. Go watch Jackass 2. That's the only one that's actually like, that's probably the best one. Jackass number 2. That one I can recommend, and I think you would enjoy it.
If it's free on anything, I'll get hammered and watch it one night just for you.
It's free on my DVD player at my house. So whenever you want to come over,
Christmas Day, I'll be there.
Yep, that's a family tradition. You're joining it this year.
Well, speaking of Christmas, let's get our Christmas obligations out of the way, shall we?
Fuck off! Oh my God, Jeremy.
I'm ready. I'm ready for it. I'm drinking a fucking lime seltzer because I'm in the Christmas spirit now.
Yeah, I'm drinking gin. That's my Christmas drink.
Well, let's talk about Elf, which was released on November 7th, 2003, written by David Berenbaum, who doesn't have a ton of writing credits, but he did write The Haunted Mansion.
Ooh, very similar movie.
This movie's directed by Jon Favreau, which admittedly I'd kind of forgotten about.
I did not even know that.
Of course, we know him for directing Iron Man 1 and 2, the Lion King remake from last year, an episode of The Mandalorian, which he also showruns, and of course all the other writing and acting credits he has. This movie stars Will Ferrell, James Caan, Bob Newhart, Mary Steenburgen making her second weekly appearance on the Big Movie Boys podcast,
Shout
as
out to
well
her.
as Zooey Deschanel. So if I'm correct, you guys didn't watch it this week, but you've both watched Elf at least this Christmas season.
Yeah, I watched it, I think, like sometime last week on Freeform. The best place to watch Christmas movies in December.
Yeah, unless it's like Christmas Vacation where they swear a little and they have to cut it all out. But no, yeah, watched it. Like I think right before last weekend, I believe it was.
I probably watch this once a year. Maybe like I don't seek it out, but it'll be on TV or like I'll be like with my family or something. Let's put on a Christmas movie. And they're like, oh, everybody likes Elf. Like we'll put that on. You know, I probably see this once a year. I'd say.
I'm with you on that. This is the movie I wish it was just like on Netflix, so I would probably watch it more if it wasn't just on like regular cable. I think like right now it's on like Stars if you wanted to
Yeah.
watch it, but obviously I don't have Stars. So this is a movie I'd probably watch like 2 or 3 times a year every
I
Christmas
might watch
season,
this.
but
I honestly might watch this outside of Christmas season. Like if it was
no,
on
yeah,
Netflix,
I think you
might
can.
just
Like
throw it on.
I
'Cause it's
think this
funny.
is like the one Christmas movie. Maybe this and I guess maybe Home Alone are like two movies that you could watch outside of the Christmas season, but
And
this
still
one's like
enjoy them.
exactly,
Yeah.
and they kind of make sense for you watching it in like July. But no, Elf is Jeremy. It's the one Christmas movie you like, so you can't harp on it too much.
You can't talk shit about Elf. I'd be shocked if you had shit to talk about Elf.
No, this is my favorite Christmas movie.
Other than your hatred of the holidays, I don't find any other way that you could dislike this movie.
I saw this movie in theaters. I've seen it at least once a year, every year since then. I watched it on DVD. Let me tell you a little bit about how I watched this movie this week, because I had not seen it this Christmas season yet, and it is one that I seek out every Christmas season. So I bust out the DVD, and I noticed that it has this feature called Infinifilm, which is really pushing the bounds on DVD technology in 2003. And essentially what Infinifilm is it's all the special features just kind of pop up during the movie, so you can watch them. They'll be directed about the part that you're currently watching in the movie itself. So it might say, check out this deleted scene, or listen to Jon Favreau talk about this, or learn how they built this
pop
set.
up. Like it just pops up and gives you the option to
Right. And
watch
you can
that.
either ignore it or click on it, and it'll pop up like a minute long extra
Like
special feature thing, and then bring you back to the movie, or you can just ignore it.
I like that.
It was pretty stupid, if I'm being honest.
Really?
But the
I
reason
ask, like, did you like take advantage of any of those offers?
I did, too large of a majority of them were just like, it would be a scene where like the elves show up in the beginning, and it's like, listen to how children describe elves, and I'm like, well, that sounds like torture, so I'm gonna skip that one. And then Santa shows up. They're like, listen to kids talk about Santa. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that either. So
That's kind of shitty. That's not what I was expecting. I feel like it'd be good for, you know how we just said we've all seen this movie a ton of times? If it's like your, however many, like your fucking, you watch it every year, right? You need like something to spice it up. I think that's not a bad way to watch it, but it doesn't sound like they took advantage of it in a way that makes it entertaining. It sounds kind of shitty now that you're describing it.
no, I did see one deleted scene, which is at the North Pole. They deleted a scene where Will Ferrell's playing like pond hockey against all the elves and basically
Oh,
destroying
that
them
sounds
all.
great.
Yeah, that's fun. If it was more stuff like that, that's actually a good idea, I'd say.
There was one deleted scene where it was just like a montage of Will Ferrell hitting his head on everything because he's obviously 6 times taller than everyone else in the movie. There was some cool stuff, like behind the scenes shots on like the forced perspective stuff, in the North Pole specifically. That's basically just how they made
And
Will
look
Ferrell
super
and
tall,
Santa,
yeah.
look all big and stuff. Which I was like, oh, I guess I would have just assumed it was edited that way, but it was mostly practical, mostly forced perspective stuff. And then the coolest part about Infinifilm is that there's an option. It's like, what is Infinifilm? So I watched that, and it's like explaining to you what it is. And guess what? One of the movies it used heavily in this promotion was.
The Dark Knight.
No.
Okay. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't even know what to guess. I would guess something around 2003, but I don't know, like old school or something. I would have no idea. But it has to be a movie that has a bunch of background shit.
Ben, you're on the right track. Rush Hour apparently has an
Oh
Infinifilm
my
version.
God.
Wow.
So I
Bob,
think
you
we need
okay?
to find
Bob,
it.
Bob, are you
haven't-
still there?
I haven't seen it. I need to get it right now. It's only on DVD.
It is a DVD feature, so if you own Rush Hour on DVD, for all you know, it might be an Infinifilm version.
I like to think I would already know if it was in Infinifilm because I would have seen it 25 times.
I mean, I've watched this Elf DVD plenty of times. This is the first time I learned about Infinifilm, so yeah, I don't know. What do you guys? I don't have any notes for Elf. I've seen this one 100 times. What you guys think going into it? Were your expectations met? Were you disappointed?
I'd say that blonde Zoe Deschanel is probably the best version of Zoe
Deschanel, yeah.
Deschanel. Yeah. She's great in this movie. This is the first time I've ever seen her, and because I liked her so much in this movie, it got me to watch probably one of my favorite comedies ever, New Girl. So Yeah, I think her for that. Will Ferrell is hysterical in this. James Caan, I think, might play his part in this movie perfectly. Mary Steenburgen is, making her second appearance in the podcast. 2 Christmas movies in a row, so maybe she's typecast. I don't know. This is a good movie. I really, really enjoy this movie, and I almost want to watch it again, like before Christmas, or maybe even on Christmas this year. I don't know. This is a great movie.
I want this movie to become the movie that gets played for 24 hours a day on Christmas because it's always funny. It's great for like once a year, so maybe it shouldn't be played 24 hours.
This is our generation.
Yeah, I agree.
Christmas
exactly.
movie.
And the only like drawback, well, there's obviously like random nitpicks and stuff and just things you have to get over, but the only thing that bothers me is that, and Bob, you might get upset about this. Just rewatching it this time, I was curious. I'm like, how much older is Will Ferrell than Zooey Deschanel? And it's like right on the brink of being too weird, and he's 13 years older. And she was 23 at the time when it was released. So she was probably like 22 when it was like filmed. And it makes me wish it just would have been someone else in her role. That's the only thing. That's my only like random thought while watching.
I didn't know she was that young. But even back then, Will Ferrell also wasn't young. I guess when you look at it now,
he was like 36 and she was 23, which I guess like it's not like creepy. But it's like,
oh no, it sounds creepy.
It's on like the verge of being creepy because like 4 years ago, then she was like 18. So
it's a lot of explaining to convince me that it's not creepy, but
but yeah, I love this movie so much. There's so many like funny scenes that you can just pick out. Like I don't know, we can probably go through them. Like I'll just like start.
Gun to your head. What's your favorite scene?
Gun to my head. There is funny you should say that. Someone's pointing a gun to my head and asking me that question. Right? It's the scene where he thinks Santa Claus is coming. That scene is never not going to make me laugh. And then if you kind of slide that into the scene, I kind of skip the one where he does all the work for Santa's workshop or whatever. That scene's whatever. Just I don't know if it needs to be there, but it's there. And then when the fake Santa's there, those two scenes like combined are the funniest part of this movie to me.
I like some of the throwaway parts that aren't really like a main focus. Like for whatever reason, the first one I always think of is when he buys his dad the lingerie, and it's like he's like in this department store. It's like for someone special. He's like for someone special. He gives it to his dad. Like that's I don't know why that part's funny. And then like even the part where he like jumps on the tree when they're in their apartment, like little things like that aren't even like scenes. They're just moments. I'm like, oh, that's fucking great. But I think the best one probably is the one that you mentioned, though, Ben.
I like everything with the department store manager. I think that guy's hilarious in every scene that he's in. Faison Hart, is that his name?
I think so, yeah.
And then like the one kind of like throwaway scene, like Bob was mentioning, when the kid is like reading off what everyone wants for Christmas to try to bring Christmas cheer back or Christmas spirit back or whatever. And he names the one biker guy who wants like a spa day or whatever, and it cuts to like that biker bar. I wish I could remember the guy's name. He's like, must be a different whatever his name was.
Yeah.
And everyone's just staring at him. I love that scene so much. And that I would combine that if we're combining cutaway scenes like that with the mail room as well, because I feel like that's a similar kind of vibe.
I was just about to put my hand up and say something because I watched this movie. We all watched this movie when we were young. Did we not understand that was liquor?
they were getting fucked up.
I didn't know that when I first watched it when I was younger. I didn't understand it.
I don't think I like put those two things together until like maybe like 4 or 5 years ago.
Right? I didn't either.
Oh, no wonder they're like loopy. I'm like, oh, they're just happy because they're like talking about Christmas. No, they're fucked up.
It took me like way too long to realize that. Like Ben, you said like 3 or 4 years ago. I agree, dude. And then it finally clicked, and I was like, wait, what the fuck? How did I not know that? Like.
And that one dude says he's like 26 years old or whatever when he's clearly like 50.
Yeah, that dude's 50. He's like Nick Cage's like doppelganger there. He looks like he's 50. Yeah, this was a movie like obviously Jeremy said like we didn't really have a plan with this one coming in. I didn't write notes. I just want to talk about more scenes. It's a stupid scene like when he starts to become friends with his brother. I don't even know that kid's name. Michael, is it?
I think it's Michael.
Yeah,
but like in like the snowball fight, I think that is so stupid and so funny. Like just the cutaway, the kid making one snowball and then Will Ferrell's there with like 100. It's so hysterical. Stupid. It's just like this feels like one of the most basic ideas for a movie, and like it actually worked. Like sometimes they don't work. Like I don't know, a lot of Will Ferrell's movies are like this, where it's just like, I don't know, what if we're stepbrothers and we just are idiots, or what if he's an elf and he's an idiot? Like, so it's like that. But I love this movie. I don't know where it would rank. I would have to actually think about it where it would rank in like Will Ferrell movies. It didn't make our top 4. I know that, right? Did it?
Oh, but it's just kind of one you throw away because you're like, oh, it's a Christmas movie. But if you really think about it, it's really like one of his better movies.
It's kind of like a good movie. It's not just a Christmas movie, I guess. Like Bob said earlier, like you could really watch this whenever.
I mean, people look at you weird if like you're hanging out or something, or you're with your girlfriend. You're like, yeah, it's July, let's throw on Elf. But then you think, oh, I do like that movie. Put it on. Like it is just it transcends seasons.
We're not there yet. We're not there
We'll get
yet.
into that.
Sorry, guys.
To your point, Ben, though, this Elf is better than Semi-Pro. No question.
Oh, I don't agree
Jesus
with that.
Christ. Okay, cut this, Jay. I don't want you to look stupid.
Okay, but like Elf is better than like Get Hard.
Yes. Like any recent Will Ferrell movies, like anything like past 2010 is like this is better than like Anchorman 2 to me. And Anchorman.
Oh yes,
Anchorman wouldn't be Anchorman's probably considered one of his best too, but
not
like,
by us though. For some
not
reason.
by us. I think I would like this. I think I like this movie better than Anchorman, even though the majority of people would like Anchorman more. But
I think I agree with that as well. I think I like Elf more than Anchorman.
Fun fact for you: according to IMDb, I did not verify this myself. Elf is apparently Will Ferrell's first leading role.
I think you're right because it was right after Old School, like I mentioned before. Like he plays a side character in Old School, Frank the Tank, and he's in Wedding Crashers as like a side role. I forget when that came out, but yeah, this is early Will Ferrell. Like I know I came at his age difference with Zooey Deschanel, but he does look really young when you watch it.
That really started a fucking train. I think he had a major comedy come out or 2 major comedies a year come out since Elf. Then probably up until now. Think about how many comedies. I didn't know that this is his first leading role. Think about how many there have been since.
Yeah, I mean, this kicked that whole thing off. If Jon Favreau's good at anything, it's kicking off a cinematic universe. And not only did he start the MCU, he started the Will Ferrell universe as well.
I didn't know he directed it because he's also in this movie too. Which is cool.
I like his little role with that stupid scene, but it's funny because like he's close with like Vince Vaughn and like those people, and like they're just all in this same world at the time, like doing Wedding Crashers. Like Vince Vaughn is in that, like Owen Wilson, they're just all interconnected, and then Will Ferrell kind of breaks off and becomes like too big for all of them. I know we did the podcast and we discussed it, but like he is like our generation's like most well-known comedic actor, and probably will be forever.
I think he is probably the most well-known comedic actor. I think he's bigger than any of the ones before.
Then it's like Bill Murray and
Rodney Dangerfield or something like that. Like, I'm thinking of movies. I guess just to wrap it up, because I don't know. There's no way there's anybody listening to this podcast that has not seen Elf. Like, seriously. It's an awesome Christmas movie. And I think, you throw Elf on, mid-December, you're putting your like lights up in your house or in front of your house or something. It really sets the mood for Christmas in a way that is like unmatched by any other Christmas movie, if I'm being honest. Home Alone does it, Home Alone's like my like right after Thanksgiving, I can watch Home Alone. Elf is my like, it's Christmas week, let's put Elf on, like it really hits Christmas so hard for me. I love this movie.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that it's like when I watch this movie, it makes me think of Christmas more than any other movie. Like I recently just watched the first 2 Santa Clauses, and it's like I like those movies, but this movie just, I don't know, it's
Christmas.
Yeah, it's a great movie, and it's like it's a stupid movie, but he plays it so straight and plays it so real to the character, and even like the end is like you get a little touched when James Caan comes around and starts his own book company or publishing company and writes. Great book, by the way. This has to be a great book. That probably sold 1 million copies. That children's book.
I'd buy it.
It definitely exists. Like, you could definitely buy that.
We've been on record, and I stand by this statement, that what makes a great comedy is how many quotes you take away from it. One of the criteria for our comedy bracket was what was the most quotable. What would you guys consider some of the most quotable lines in this movie? I'll start, not necessarily the funniest, but one that will just pop in my head every now and then, and I'll even forget it's from Elf, is when the narwhal comes up, and he says, "Bye, buddy." Hope you find your dad.
That line.
That's a good one.
I wouldn't have even thought of that one, but
I
you're
think
so right.
that-
Like when he says that.
Probably the number one line from the movie is probably when he's talking to Peter Dinklage and he's like, "Ooh, you're an angry elf."
Yeah,
That's a good. I think he's from the South Pole. Like that's
so,
that's a good one.
I
I don't know. You go, Ben. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, I was just saying like. I think of just my favorite scene too when he just tells the fake Santa, "You sit on a throne of lies."
That's a great one.
It's so funny. Or like, I think he says like, "Does someone need a hug or something like that?" to the raccoon, and the raccoon just jumps up at him. So stupid, like just that stupid physical comedy that I always will love. You sit on a throne of lies.
What
Like,
does he tell? What does he tell him? Also, he's like, "You smell like cheese. Is it cheese whiz and something else?" Like.
Yeah, I forget what he says, but like the
He
guy
doesn't
is so
say
cool. Like he's the most unput together mall Santa that I've
you
ever
can see
seen.
his like black hair poking out of his Santa hat. Like, I
It's
love
like,
that.
and
And then what does he say? What does he say? He's like, "How would you like to be dead?" In front of kids.
And then it just cuts to the next scene of like Faison being Santa. Like it's so stupid. I love the idea of like Santa, the real Santa, not taking the time to tell this guy who's obviously already delusional to not fuck it up. Like, hey, there's fake Santas. Like he instead tells him not to eat gum from underneath like subways. But whatever. I guess I can't.
Or the
nitpick
yellow.
too
Don't
hard.
eat the yellow.
Yellow
Don't eat the yellow
snow,
snow. That's another good one.
But he wasn't like, hey, maybe switch up your outfit. That'd be a good first tip, I would say.
I think James Caan has one of my favorite lines as well, and it's all just in his delivery of it. But Mary Steenburgen is saying like, "Oh, we need to, clearly this dude is not mentally well. We should probably let him spend the night." And she's like,
Oh, yeah.
"We can't just kick him out into the snow." And he's like, "Why not? He loves the snow. He's told me 15 times."
Yeah, just like his whole first interaction with the family, like how he wants him to be. Like he's like, "Dad, are you gonna tuck me in?" He's like, "I love you," and his feet are sticking out. Like that's so great.
One of the few like outtakes and stuff that I watched via Infinifilm was when he's eating spaghetti and obviously pouring the syrup on it and everything, chugging the 2 liter of Coke. There's a couple outtakes where he does the burp, and then he's like, "Wow, did you hear that?" or something like that. And every take, the kid just starts dying laughing, and I'm just like, yeah, I can imagine if I was like 12 years old, however old that kid is, trying to act aside Will Ferrell, I'd be laughing the whole time too.
Did they explain like how he chugs the fake 2 liter?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious if you watch the movie too. There's some pretty deliberate cuts, but it's just a tube that he's pouring it out of, and then there's a cut where he drinks maybe like 2 sips out of a bottle at the very end.
Because I think even doing that many takes, he's got to take. I was thinking he did like a couple sips every time. I would be like, and with the syrup, I think this movie is the movie where I'm pretty sure he got like so like sugar high and like was sick because he was like eating too much syrup.
Yeah, I remember hearing that.
I can't wait to tell people that, hey, did you know that scene from Elf? He really drinks the entire 2 liter.
I believe it.
You could convince me when I'm drunk that that's true.
Any final thoughts on Elf? Would you recommend it?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
No, it's a great Christmas movie. I think everybody knows that. So that's my final thoughts on Elf.
Yeah, it's mine and Jeremy's favorite Christmas movie. So yeah, I'm excited to watch it once again on Christmas Day.
It would be my number one if it wasn't for the nostalgia and like family tradition of A Christmas Story, but it's my number 2, and it is, it's close. If we get like a racial scandal from one of the directors of A Christmas Story and it's not on for 24 hours anymore, Elf is my new favorite Christmas movie.
There you go. You just have to wait a couple of years. That'll happen.
Yeah.
Bob, Ralphie from A Christmas Story is one of the elves in the North Pole?
I did. I was going to mention it earlier, but I missed my chance.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Well, I think that'll do it for Elf. I guess we'll see it in 12 months when we talk about our next Christmas movie. But in the meantime, let's get to the freaking meat and potatoes, boys. Has there been a more highly anticipated movie on this podcast than Tenet?
It's the reason we started the podcast.
Yeah, I think Jeremy even put out a tweet from the Big Movie Boys account that this is the reason we started. It's funny because I think the first practice one we ever did, we talked Marriage Story. We did bullshit news articles, and I'm like, I don't really care about the news articles. But this was the only thing that I was interested, and it was before like COVID. I'm like, fuck, I cannot wait for this movie. It's like the only movie I actually wanted, like, because at the time we were talking about we were going to go see the movies together, and then like even do the podcast after. It's just wild that here we are, 9 months later. I watched this movie in South Dakota and on a laptop. It's definitely not what I thought my experience was going to be watching the movie.
Guess how I watched the movie?
The way Christopher Nolan intended?
Yeah, not the way Christopher Nolan intended. Bob, I want to say you watched it on your phone, but I don't want to believe it.
But I sure as shit did watch it on my phone.
God damn.
I had a little throwback to the original Big Movie Boys days when I lived at home and I couldn't use the television in my house, so I had to watch things on my phone. I said, you know what? Let me watch this movie as the way Christopher Nolan intended it to, with my headphones in, on my fucking phone.
That's funny.
Love
Jeremy, did you watch it on your Apple Watch? Are we getting smaller here?
I busted out the Game Boy Advanced and tried to watch it on that. No, I watched it on Blu-ray. I, got as close to the real experience as I could. I do want to just, for the people listening at home, Bob, if I'm correct, you watched this on your phone, and I know from being in the same Snapchat group as you that, so you started this movie at 5 p.m.?
Like 5:15 probably.
Okay, so at 6 p.m. you were responding to Snapchats, so clearly you didn't even watch the movie uninterrupted on your phone.
That is correct. And if you also paid attention to your Snapchat, Jeremy, I also Snapchatted you my food when I had like 5 minutes of the movie to go. So I DoorDashed in the middle of this as well.
And you also finished about 25 minutes before we started recording this?
Yeah. So it's very fresh in my mind, and I don't think that's a good thing.
No, you're almost unqualified to speak about this movie whatsoever. But
yeah, it's not like watching Elf, where you're like, oh, cool, I'm fresh, I got all the lines in my head. This movie, you'd be like, I watched it yesterday, and I still don't feel like I have enough time in between them.
The chemical reactions that were going through my body. I'll let you know, when I was watching this movie, I watched it in my room with all the lights off. So basically, you can pretend you're watching it on a big screen when you're looking at your phone with all the lights off. But I got so hot, and the windows in my bedroom don't even shut all the way. So it's like 50 degrees in my bedroom at all times. I was so fucking warm watching this movie, and I wasn't even like sweating. I'm just like, wow, like my internal temperature is really high right now. I like stripped down. I'm literally sitting there in my boxers, sweating my ass off for the last 10 minutes of this movie. And then I throw the fucking Five Guys, triple patty, and a dog down my throat. My fucking toilet bowl is going to regret that the next morning. So like I have my brain is mental mush from watching Tenet. My stomach is mush from eating Five Guys. And my entire body is just like on fucking fire, dude. Like literally this entire experience for me. And also I just started drinking because I had to calm myself down a little. But like, I just like my body feels fucking weird from this entire experience. Like I honestly think I'll remember the way I feel right now more than I will remember the first time I saw the movie. Like my feelings are outrageous right now.
All right, well, we've spoken a lot about this movie without speaking about it. So let's get into it. And we're going to keep it spoiler-free at the beginning. I imagine most people listening probably haven't seen Tenet yet. So we are going to keep it spoiler-free. We don't want to ruin anything for you. We'll give our spoiler-free impressions. We'll let you know if we recommend it or not. We will very explicitly state when we're going into spoilers. But we're going to start spoiler-free in the meantime. Tenet was released officially in the U.S. on September 3rd of 2020. An original release date of July 17th. Was then pushed. It released basically in every country outside of America on August 26th. And then another date to keep in mind, the Blu-ray digital release happened this week on December 15th. That's going to be the date that most people were first able to watch this movie, at least in the States. Obviously, this was written and directed by Christopher Nolan, and it stars John David Washington, friend of the show Robert Pattinson, Elizabeth Debicki, Kenneth Branagh, and a few others that I'm sure we'll get to. I mean, obviously, as I said, we've discussed this movie in the context of the trailers, in the context of it being pushed further and further back, in the context of can this be the movie that brings back movie theaters? Spoiler alert, it wasn't. But all of that aside, you guys, I gave you my login so you could watch this movie on Tuesday. What was going through your mind before you finally pressed play? Ben, you're the big Christopher Nolan boy. We'll start with you.
Yeah, no, I was super excited. I was upset a little bit that I couldn't watch it on the real TV, and I even had to pause it multiple times. Just like I even rewound it while I was watching it. So I kind of wish I would have watched this in a movie theater and just said like fuck it. But I found myself trying to understand what was going on while I was watching it. But like just before I started, I was so excited because I was like, I even took like a mental note. I was like, he's my favorite director. Dark Knight, Interstellar, uh, Inception, obviously. Like those three are the big three. In this movie, I was like, never once during one of those movies was I like, before I watched it, was I like, okay, take it in. Like this is gonna be your first time watching this movie that's gonna be in like your life for the rest of your life, and that you're gonna come back to it so many times. Like this is the first time, and I kind of took this mental note. I'm like, oh shit, that's kind of cool. But it was just I was so excited to just finally press play. And that first scene is just all of his first scenes in like every movie are just so well done, and they don't tell you any story. They just kind of like plop you right in the middle of this story, and then you're supposed to try to figure it out. And I think like this scene once again does that with the opera scene. And I don't know, I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, Ben, you hit the nail on the head with the opening. That's a Christopher Nolanism. Like, it's Inception. It's the Dark Knight. Like the way like these movies start, like the way this movie started, just totally felt just like those. And that's not a bad thing at all. It's honestly one of the things I love the most about him. But yeah, this movie. Oh man, dude, it's crazy because like it was so hyped. Obviously, like I was so excited for it. Like could not wait like this summer for this movie to come out. Like I remember the first trailer, I was like, oh my god, that movie's gonna be fucking amazing. And then like it kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed, and I was getting more and more excited for it. I was like, I can't wait to finally see it. And then it kind of got to the point where I was just like, I'm never going to see this movie. Like I don't know when it's gonna come out. I won't ever be able to see it in the theater. So like I was kind of bummed. And then like my anticipation and my excitement like totally dropped, and it like wasn't even on my radar. Like I stopped thinking about it. And then this week it's just like, okay, yeah, we're gonna watch Tenet, whatever. And then boom, it fucking starts, and I was like, oh my god, like all those feelings rushed back in to me. Like right when the movie started, I was like, oh my god, I remember how excited I was for this, and I just realized, oh my god, I'm finally watching this movie that I've waited forever to see. But like leading up to it, I almost forgot about it, and I wasn't excited this week until the movie started. Then my excitement came back in. But yeah. Oh man, it was really like worth it to finally see the movie.
I was able to basically stay entirely spoiler free. I'd only really seen one or maybe two trailers, but I did know that this was getting not great reviews. It's pretty lowly rated compared to other Christopher Nolan movies. I mean, most of his movies are in like the top 50 or 75 on IMDb's top list. This one, according to its current rating of like 7.6, Metascore of 69 at the moment. I think those are too low. I like this movie a lot. I don't want to overhype it because knowing that the scores were kind of this middling to low, it almost kind of brought down my expectations a little bit. But ultimately what I think it comes down to is that if you like Nolan movies, if you like Inception, if you like The Dark Knight, you're going to like this movie. And I'm very confused by the people who like Nolan movies and aren't liking this movie. I can't really wrap my head around that.
Just to that point, Jared, it's funny. Like, I think people expect so much from him, so maybe it doesn't live up to like an Inception type hype. I don't know where I would rank this. I would obviously need to watch this like 5 more times before I could even think about ranking it in my Nolan movies. But the thing that the reason why he's my favorite director is like he does these crazy things, like besides The Dark Knight, but like because that's not his original movie. But even then, he's like taking chances. In this, like Inception, like Interstellar, obviously, you guys know I love that movie. Like he just takes these risks and comes up with these whole new worlds. And like they're not like worlds like Star Wars where you could think of like a just
it's like a fantasy.
These
seem like they could be real.
Yeah, like, and you could think of like, I don't know, us three as kids could have come up, not with Star Wars, obviously, but we could come up with like aliens fighting like other aliens. Like you could come up with that. Like, I don't know how someone comes up with this, gets pen on paper and like makes it actually work in like
and make it look 2.5 hours fucking realistic.
Like, exactly. And it's a 2.5 hour movie. And like Jerry said, I don't want to overhype it either because I didn't come in with like huge expectations. I just knew I was like excited because it was a Nolan movie. So I guess my expectations weren't high. I was just like excited to watch it. So I don't want to like say it's like the greatest movie ever. It's just like it's a spectacle of a movie, and it's I don't know. It's just I'm glad someone out there is like making movies like this rather than sorry, Jared, like just making Marvel movies constantly. I'm glad movies like this are still at least being pushed through. And I know it needs a name like Nolan to do it, but it just I hope some kid out there smarter than us and like more creative than us is like taking notes and is going to like follow in his footsteps so I can have movies like this in my life for the rest of my life.
I just think that his worlds, even like the way his take on the Dark Knight, it made it seem like this could be real. Like there's like for all I know, John David Washington is fucking jumping through time in front of me right now. Like it just feels like the way it's written and the way it's portrayed on screen. I'm just like, this seems like it's almost based in reality. Like I don't know, it's just so bulletproof. But like the way I look at this, to what Jeremy mentioned about the scores that it's getting, yeah, it's not getting good reviews. It's not getting bad reviews, but it's not getting the reviews you expect from a Christopher Nolan movie. I think with this movie, what that's going to equate to in the future is that this is going to end up being like a cult classic. I really think that this is going to get buried because like everybody's excited for it. But like a Nolan movie, like if this came out in theaters this summer and we had no coronavirus, I think a lot of people would have seen it. Would have been number one at the box office. But to what I spoke about earlier, that like my hype for it died because it got delayed so much. I think that happened. Like an average, like an everyday guy, like not a big movie boy. I think like his hype was probably up there when he would have seen it in theaters, but then it got delayed and it got delayed and it got delayed, and now it's not on streaming. You got to pay for it. I just think like for a guy like an everyday person, like that just gets buried. And like when this comes to streaming one day, they might check it out, but like they're not going to seek it out. I think the average everyday movie watcher isn't going to seek this out because it just got delayed for so much time. And like I said, like the reviews aren't good, so that's another thing that's probably people are like, oh, I don't need to see it. It wasn't that good, you know? But I think like once this sits with people, and like Jeremy's already seen it twice, but I already want to see it twice. I want to see it a third and a fourth time. Like I think the more you watch this movie, it's just going to be like more and more interesting. And there's so many like nuances that we probably didn't catch. And I just think like after repeat rewatches and rewatches, this like film's almost legend is going to grow. And then in like 5 or 6 years, when it's finally put on Netflix for free, people are going to be like, oh, check out Tenet. And like, I just feel like people are gonna be like, oh, I remember when I wanted to see that. And like, now it's on Netflix and I can watch it. And like, then it's just going to grow and grow. And like, I think it just becomes a cult classic because there's so many other Nolan movies that, yeah, I don't know where this ranks, like Dark Knight and Interstellar and Inception. Like right now, like, I don't know where I would rank it, but like, that's the other reason I think it could get buried because there's so many Nolan movies. But I think this will be like the lost Nolan movie just because of everything. And it came out during the pandemic. Think about it in like, you know, like in 10 years when you're talking about this movie, like after people have time to like dissect it and really pick up on all the nuances and all the crazy things that happen, you know, with the inversion and whatnot. I just think this movie will grow and grow and become bigger and bigger. But right now, it is what it is.
Yeah, Jared, before you cut in and give your like initial thoughts more so, to your point, Bob, about like just a guy who really doesn't care about like movies. Not that we're like the biggest like critics in the world, but like we were all excited about this movie. We were gonna watch it no matter what when it came out. And I just think it sucks that someone like John David Washington, who I think is like, I watched him in Ballers, and I think he's like such a cool, charismatic actor. I think it sucks for him because like this should have been his breakout movie where like everyone's like, all right, he needs to be in everything. Like he needs to be in every movie. And I think it just sucks. Like people already know Robert Pattinson and they're the two main characters, obviously. But like I just wish John David Washington would have had
him
better luck with it.
Exactly, because this would have been, if COVID did not happen and everybody saw this in theaters like everybody was anticipating for being the big summer blockbuster, John David Washington, I mean, what else have you seen him in? I saw him in Black Klansman, and he literally blew my mind.
Yeah, Ballers and Black Klansman. He's just so great.
And he's absolutely incredible in this movie. So, yeah, this should have been a star-making performance. This should have been his breakout role, and it's going to just get lost. It really is.
Yeah, I don't think there are any bad performances in this movie. I think he easily could have been, like Bob said, this could have been his star-making role. I think anyone who was still skeptical on Robert Pattinson as being the Twilight guy, obviously we're not. We're very pro Robert Pattinson on this podcast, but that would have changed any doubter's mind there. I'm even more stoked for the Batman movie that he's going to be in now.
Great point. God, yeah, that's a great point, Jer.
But, yeah, I mean, I'll ask you guys and I'll answer myself first, but before we move into spoilers, I think we all kind of know the answers already, but would you recommend this to everyone who's listening? Obviously, I say yes. If you hate Nolan, then no, you're not going to like this movie. If you like Nolan, I can't see why you wouldn't like this movie. We joked about it before we ever saw it. We said, I can't wait to watch this movie 6 times and finally maybe start to understand it. That's legitimately what's going to happen. The first hour and a half, the first time you watch this movie, I didn't have a goddamn clue what was going on. But I was still entertained the entire way through. And then once you kind of piece everything together and you go back and watch it a second time, you're like, okay, the pieces are starting to fall. I think I'm starting to get it. Then you do a couple hours of research. Then you go and you watch it your third time and you're like, okay, maybe I am starting to get this. And a movie like that isn't for everyone. I loved it.
Yeah, I'll go first. But I wouldn't recommend this to like my dad who hated Inception. Like if you don't like Inception, you're gonna hate this movie. But this is a movie. This is another reason why I love Nolan movies. Like you get to like live with these movies and find something else that you didn't notice in like even your fourth time watching it. And Jerry, you've watched it twice. Me and Bob just once, but like I'm so excited to watch this a second time and do it like how you did. I want to watch it a second time, then read all the synopsis, see how much I can actually just get on my own after 2 watches. Then I'll like do the research, watch it a third time, trick myself into thinking I know what happened, and then I'll watch it a fourth time, not know what happened, and then like by the fifth or sixth time I'll convince myself I'm like some Tenet expert and I'll be talking about entropy and physics to like people at bars or something. They'll be like, dude, shut the fuck up. But yeah, obviously I recommend this movie. But yeah, just understand that like what you're getting into. Like if you're ready to just watch, you just want to watch your movie and turn your brain off because you had a hard day at work. Yeah, watch Elf. Do not watch this movie. But no, this is gonna be one we talk about for a long time.
I think for me, actually, but before I say if I recommend it or not, I have a question for you guys. Do you think the first time you watched Tenet compared to the first time you watched Inception, which one do you think was more hard to understand?
Tenet.
Yeah, and it's funny because when we first went and saw Inception, you're 14, 15, and you think you kind of understand it. This movie, I'm 24, and I think I'm smart. This movie's way more complicated. I think.
That's what I was thinking as well. I mean, I can't remember what it was like the first time I saw Inception. I remember it was really, shocking and like confusing and things like that. But as I'm watching Tenet the first time through, I'm like, holy fuck, this is so goddamn confusing. So I think if you're somebody that didn't like Inception because you think it's confusing, don't watch Tenet because it's way more confusing. But if you're somebody that liked Inception and thought all those nuances and all that like complex story, and maybe mystery isn't the word, but like the fact that you had to watch this movie multiple times to understand it, if that's something that intrigues you and you enjoyed that about Inception, let's go up a level and go to Tenet, because Tenet it seems similar to me as Inception. I think when the trailers came out, it looks like Inception but with time travel. Like that's sort of almost like an easy way to describe it to somebody. So if you liked Inception and you're into movies like that really just make you have to think, then go watch Tenet. I couldn't recommend it anymore. But if you're somebody that didn't like something like Inception because you thought it was too complex or you couldn't follow the story, probably stay away from Tenet, because if you didn't like Inception, I don't think you like Tenet, because it's just the type of movie it is, and it's intense. But I love it. If I had to recommend it to just like yes or no, would I recommend it? I'd say yes.
All right. Well, you've heard our thoughts. We kept it spoiler free. If you haven't watched the movie yet, and you want to watch it without being spoiled, pause the podcast right here, figure out a way to watch it, and then come back.
Watch it 6 times and then come back.
Yeah, that might be a good idea as well. You might want to watch it a couple of times. But if you have watched the movie or you are not adverse to spoilers, we're glad to have you on this journey.
This is one of those movies, though, where like if Jeremy knows more than me and Bob about this movie because you've watched it twice, but you could still listen to this part and it won't be exactly spoiled. There'll be some giveaways, but it won't be like, oh, I can't watch. I can't.
We're not going to explain the plot. We don't know the plot.
I'm prepared to. I can explain anything you guys need. Anything
I'm
you
ready
need
to ask Jeremy questions.
The first thing I want to discuss, though, not necessarily a spoiler, but it might bring up scenes that we talk about. The music in this movie is fucking incredible.
Yeah.
The composer, so normally Hans Zimmer does Nolan's movies. He was preoccupied with Dune, so he got Ludwig Göransson. Are you guys familiar with this guy at all?
I don't think so, but if you name stuff he's in, I might know it.
Yeah, give me some of that, Jer.
Well, so he's worked with Ryan Coogler a lot. He did the music for Creed and Black Panther, won the Academy Award for original score for Black Panther. He also made the score for The Mandalorian, and he produces a lot of Childish Gambino's music.
So
I get that.
not a bad backup to Hans Zimmer.
No, I think that's actually might be better for. I don't know. This movie's sweet. I love the music in this movie as well, Jeremy. I didn't know anything about that, but yeah, it's fucking sick.
All of the music from beginning to end is awesome, and by far the coolest part is it happens a few times earlier in the movie, but in the kind of climactic battle scene when there's the regular team and the inverted team, when they cut between the two, every time they show the inverted team, the score changes, and it sounds like the score playing backwards.
It's
Like,
backwards.
I did not pick up on that, but that's
Dude,
so
that's
cool.
fucking great. I'm kind of sad you said that. I definitely wouldn't have picked up on that. I would have had to read that somewhere. But no, that's so cool. And just like I don't know, with all Nolan films, I feel like the music is like another character. Like it helps you like feel what you feel like during the movie. It's just the music was sweet. Jared, that point is fucking sick. Like that is so sweet.
I don't think I don't think it actually is the score playing backwards. Like after watching it, like even before my second viewing, I just pulled up the movie, recorded a scene on my phone where it cuts between the two, and then played the inverted part backwards to see if it did match, and it just sounded like a jumbled mess when I played it in reverse. So I don't think it's exactly the score
But it's meant
backwards,
to be.
but it sounds like it. It sounds the music sounds almost like it's playing in reverse.
That's the thing, though, and I know, like, when this movie first started, I was like, I'm going to look for the tells, because I know, obviously, there's going to be a lot of, like, confusing points, and one of the things that I immediately assumed would be, like, there'd be some music giveaways, or maybe, I was looking for, like, things on screen, too. I was like, maybe there's something different about when they're, like, traveling in time, or when somebody is inverted or not, and I was looking for those tells, and I was just, like, so like caught up in the movie that I kind of gave up on it, and I didn't really pick up on anything. But I assume the music is probably one of the major ones that, like, when you read about it after and you rewatch the movie, you're like, I see it. Like, there it is. It makes it make more sense. That's one of the cool parts about the movie, though.
One of the things I actually like about this movie is that the idea of inversion, moving backwards in time, isn't as prominent. Like the gimmick isn't as prominent as it is in like Inception. It obviously has a pretty big footprint, but I don't think they lean on it as much as Inception. Maybe you guys will disagree there, but what I liked is that when someone is inverted, you don't really have to guess, because either if you're watching from the perspective of the character, everything around them is going backwards, or if it's that final scene, you got the armbands to denote who's going forward and who's going backwards, or if the character's inverted, they got the gas mask on or whatever. So stuff like that, I thought at least cleared up some of the confusion on my first viewing.
No, yeah, I agree with you, Jared, that they introduce it kind of early on with the protagonist going on and like doing the catching the bullet or whatever, and they don't really use it again. Well, they use it again, obviously, but they don't use it heavily until the final scene, which I think is crucial, because if this movie just becomes inversion, then you're kind of like, okay, what am I doing here? Like,
right.
But they let the plot kind of just involve inversion rather than inversion just like be the cool shiny thing that you watch. But no, yeah, that's probably my only thing. Like they might use it too much at the end, but you need to, because it's like that's the whole point.
Yeah, that's what we're building up to. I will say one of the things that I'm still a bit confused on is inverted objects. Like the way we're introduced to inversion is the bullet. When it's people being inverted, I'm able to comprehend that. I think I got a pretty good idea of what's going on. But when it's just a single bullet sitting on the table and he's able to just kind of lift it off without touching it,
yeah,
does that mean he can't then drop that bullet, because from the bullet's perspective,
it's already been dropped?
Because like moving forward, we can't pull up a bullet from the table without touching it. So then theoretically moving backwards, we wouldn't be able to drop a bullet.
He'd have to throw the bullet down, right?
I think he'd have to set it down.
I can't talk too much about semantics. Can I ask you guys a question? So for the ending, when Kat is convincing like Sater to not kill himself yet, spoiler, But like, she's not wearing the mask there? I need someone to explain that part to me because the
why?
previous cat is she's like not inverted. She takes her son to the beach or whatever, and then she is inverted. I'm supposed to assume, and she's not wearing the mask. So I was very confused by that part.
I agree. I didn't get that one either.
Jeremy, give me that answer.
Well, the short answer, she's not inverted. She is the older future cat. They all went back in time to that day, or a little bit previous to that day, so that they could go forward with that climactic operation that we see, the temporal pincer maneuver that they pull
and that's
off.
that's like when John David Washington can't run into himself. Like,
Well, yeah, that's why she
You're
can't
not-
run into herself. I get that aspect. I'm just saying, so she goes back like even further or something, and then
They
she
went
goes into the
back-
future. She inverts herself and then inverts again. Is that
Right. Well,
what I'm supposed to
she
understand?
inverts herself. They all go backwards past previous to that yacht at some point, and then they revert going forward in time, and that's when she's on the yacht, and that's when
Gotcha.
John David Washington is operating in that that procedure to get the algorithm out before the bomb collapses it. So, I mean, one of the coolest things about this movie, obviously, time, huge factor. Palindromes, big factor. Tenet being a palindrome. There's a lot of palindromes in this movie. The idea of things being the same forward and backwards. This whole movie ends, not counting the very, very final scene, where John David Washington kills, what's her face, the Indian arms dealer
Priya.
lady, Priya. But like the climactic scene where they're one of those secret cities in Russia. So when they're there, that's all happening at the same time as the opera. So this movie basically begins and ends at the exact same moment in time.
That's what I figured. All right, I figured that aspect. I just didn't understand why it was. I still won't understand the beginning scene. I guess I'll need to watch it a couple more times, or even your explanation. But just that, I don't understand how he's there and at the battleground scene. I don't know why does one affects the other though, right? Isn't that how it goes? Like that was going to be the end of the world.
Yeah, and that brings up one of the complicated but very cool themes of this movie. And it's definitely something that requires multiple viewings. But the idea of kind of free will versus determinism, because they even mention it in the movie, they call it out, but they're saying like, by virtue of the world having not ended while they're conducting this operation,
Didn't they already
know
win?
it's
Yeah,
going to
didn't they already
succeed.
succeed?
Exactly.
That's
Well,
the same as like that grandfather thing too. That like if you go
yeah.
back in time and kill your grandfather, how could you do that? Because if you killed your grandfather, you wouldn't have existed to go back in time to kill your grandfather.
Isn't it funny? I've never even thought of that aspect when you go back in time and like kill someone, but that is so true, and I just love how they point it out, and I think that's Neil's whole character. That's like Robert Pattinson's whole thing.
Oh, he's
like,
fucking amazing.
He's done everything 5 times already in my eyes. Like that dude.
Oh, and then finding out at the end that they already knew each other, and I'm like, oh, I love that. Like,
are you ready for Tenet 2 when
Oh
the
my God,
protagonist
yeah.
has to go meet him? But
what
just
was
like
the line that John David Washington had? He's just like, no, Robert Pattinson's like, I'm saying goodbye to a really good friend, and then like, what did John David Washington say? He's like, I'm saying, what did he fucking say? What's the line?
no, he was just like, you're saying goodbye when you're about to say hello. I'm saying goodbye. You're about to say hello to me or something. Like, because he recruits him. He recruits
Yeah.
Neil, which is just like unbelievable. And like just the fact that obviously Robert Pattinson is the reason John David Washington's character like is able to pull it off. And then he's like, I have to go invert myself one more time. We're like, we have to do this. Like, and he doesn't really know why, but he knows why. I don't know. That's why his character is going to be like the one that lingers the most. Just like how he even knew everything that was going to happen. I don't know. He's the most confusing character. You're kind of on the ride with the protagonist. Yeah, you're on the ride with the protagonist. And like, so you're confused, obviously. Like, that's why we're even confused at the end, because even the protagonist is confused.
I do think by the end of it, though, the protagonist, you see the growth. You see how he's kind of not thinking linearly anymore.
Yeah.
And they say it in the movie, obviously, but like, they don't need to, because you pick up on it. Like, they almost point out, like, oh, by the way, he is not looking one-dimensionally. He is fucking seeing into the future and the past and the present all in like one big thing. That is a fucking sweet part about the movie.
I mean, I could name like 15 different of my favorite moments in this movie, but the Oslo Freeport, we come to it a few times, but I mean, we'll start with their kind of heist prep and then execution of the heist. Some of the coolest like heist moments in any movie ever. The fact that Christopher Nolan crashed a real 747 into a real building just for that shot. It doesn't get any cooler than that.
That's
Didn't know
legendary.
that. Wow, that sucks that nobody saw that in theaters. That's fucking wow.
No, that whole scene is just amazing, and that you kind of get to watch it like another time. But that's the whole. I know, Jeremy, you said you didn't really watch any of the trailers, but that's like the trailer that got me the most excited. Is like cutting between Robert Pattinson saying like, "Well, not crashing it from the air. Don't be so dramatic," and then the protagonist saying like, "But we're gonna crash. Like, how big is the plane?" And he goes like, "Well, that part is dramatic. Like that part of the scene. Like that's the funniest part of the movie.
That's the best
I think.
part.
And it's just so cool. And then when they actually pull it off, and that scene is so. I don't know about you guys. When scenes like that happen, I catch myself having to breathe, like take a deep breath. And that scene, like I had to do it like 3 times during that scene. I fucking love that scene so much.
Dude, you mentioned not being able to catch your breath. This movie, I think I've never been so confused, but then also like excited at the same time. Like I'm literally watching a scene that I don't understand, but I'm like standing up in my seat, like excited. I'm like, why am I excited for something I don't understand? I couldn't like explain that phenomenon, but like that's how I felt. I was like, I don't know what's happening, but I'm excited. It was a weird feeling.
Did you guys think the protagonist was fighting himself the first time through? Obviously, we get the reveal. We get the flip
Absolutely
side
not.
later, but
I thought about it when they showed the close up on him. I also thought that when they were in the opera house, but like when they showed the close up on him, I was just like, what if that's him? Like, you know, like it ran through my mind, but then I probably forgot it like 2 seconds later.
No, I totally knew it was him. Well, that was like the one thing I called. Not that I knew what was going on. I thought it was both of them. So I thought it was John David Washington and Robert Pattinson's character.
That's what I thought.
It's not until you know later that it's just him the whole time. But it's just funny, like how even then Robert Pattinson, because he's already lived it, is like, well, just go. I know this all just needs to happen. Just go.
I like the revelation that when you saw Robert Pattinson just let that guy go, I was just like, oh, that was weird. But then like you see later why he let him go. I was like,
that's why
cool.
I thought it was Robert Pattinson, because I thought he saw himself and he's like,
right.
Okay, this needs to happen. But either way, like he knew whatever's happening right now, he needs to let that guy get away because that's his partner. It's just him from the future. And that scene probably is, I don't know, it'll take me a couple of times watching to figure out my favorite scene, but that whole scene, the crashing of the plane, that whole scene is my favorite, even more so than the climactic scene at the end.
That's the best part, yeah, for sure. Oh no, I totally agree, Ben. That scene the first time through and then the second time through at the airport is better than the final scene.
I think I can get behind that. I will say, to offer some criticisms of the movie, because it's not perfect as much as I did like it. One of my big ones was that final action scene, not really seeing the enemy army or whatever. It just kind of feels like they're shooting at an invisible enemy the whole time.
I kind of agree with that.
I agree with that. It kind of reminds me of Inception, where they're like just shooting at random people at the end in that snow scene. Like you don't really know. You know Sator's the bad guy, but you don't know who the other army is. Like, and even like we know like Ives. We only have like 3 characters that we know on that army. Like we know Ives, the protagonist, and Neil. And then other than that, it's kind of like
the
Wheeler.
female general as
Wheeler,
well.
yeah, Wheeler. And then like other than that, it's just like, okay, I know who I'm rooting for, but like who are they even fighting? You know, like Sator's henchman, the one guy. But
a
other
really
than
tall
that,
guy.
Yeah, he's like 6'8", I'm pretty sure. But other than Jared, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good criticism.
I agree with that one as well.
The other big one is one for all Christopher Nolan movies, the fucking sound mixing. I had to throw captions on the second time around.
I had captions on the first time. I thought that was more so because I was doing laundry in the background and also had just watching it on the laptop. That's funny that you say that because you probably had the better viewing experience. But I wanted captions on just to understand them more, anyways, because I know Robert Pattinson's being British, and I knew there were going to be 50% British people, so I knew I needed it on to begin with.
That's one of the major problems about this movie, I would say, is that a lot of characters that are explaining major plot points do that in heavy accents, whether it be Priya or Robert Pattinson or the big bad guy with a thick Russian accent. That doesn't do you any favors with trying to understand the movie. Is that I don't like there's a heavy accent involved. So I definitely could probably have watched this with captions.
Yeah, and on top of that, Nolan loves having his actors speak either quickly or quietly, or there's an explosion going on that's muting out people's words, or someone's wearing a mask so you can't understand them. That definitely is something that could easily be fixed that he chooses not to do in most of his movies. And then I guess my only other kind of criticism while we're on the topic is John David Washington's motivations, and included in that is like why he's like so attached to Kat right away.
That was my big one I was waiting for.
Because like he's a CIA agent who's willing to kill himself. That's kind of how we're introduced to him. But then once he kind of goes on this Tenet journey, he immediately will kind of do anything to keep Kat safe. And I don't know, their whole relationship didn't make a ton of sense to me.
My thoughts on that were that I thought we were going to get a reveal later on in the movie that he actually had this relationship with Kat, and it was like something in the past or in the future. I thought there was going to be a way to explain why he was so like you said, willing to do anything for her. That caught me off guard. I was expecting a scene to explain that, showing like a past or future relationship that they had. Never got it, and I was a little confused about it.
Yeah, I feel like there's like some cut scene that like maybe does explain that. That is true. I think his like
it doesn't have to be a lot.
No, it doesn't. Yeah,
it could be literally a 10, 15-second scene.
The Dark Knight Rises scene where you just see Christian Bale at the end with Catwoman. Just some stupid scene like that where they end up together. But like or like the end of Inception where Leo's just seeing the kids again. But I don't know.
Exactly.
I think it's easy to figure out his like goals because he's a CIA agent and he's like learns about Tenet. He just wants to save the world. And it like the cat thing, yes, is like the one odd thing. I can get behind why he's doing all of it. I can't comprehend why he's really doing it for her. But I get why he is totally involved in this world, and like him and Robert Pattinson are just like these two. He's MI6, he's CIA, and they're just like, let's save the world. I can comprehend that aspect because that's what he signed up for. Like day one, he was willing to kill himself to like save his country or help his country, let alone like just doing all this stuff to help save the world. I can believe all that part.
How do we feel about the obligatory Michael Caine scene? Obviously, he's going to be in here somewhere. Apparently, he's like, yeah, I can do lunch, Chris. No problem.
I mean, Jeremy said it. It happens in almost every Christopher Nolan movie. There is going to be a Michael Caine appearance. It does seem a little brief, and I'm assuming it was filmed in one day, probably maybe half a day, or,
I'm going to assume somewhere around lunchtime.
Yeah, it was, in what is his character? I don't even remember his character, honestly.
Stalsk? Is that
they like mentioned him? They mentioned him later on. They mentioned that lunch meeting, but I could have went for maybe one more scene with him in it. Just one.
I get that, and
to make him feel like a character.
And I'm trying to think like where does he fit in this movie? I feel like he just made up this character so Michael Caine could be in the movie because he does not fit anywhere else. He's not supposed to be in this movie, and Michael Caine was like, dude, I'm here. I'm in London. What do you need? I'll do a 2-minute scene. Different. Yeah, no, like you could have done anything to get. I think he like basically gets the protagonist from just to Priya. Like that's how he gets them to Priya, and it's not even to Priya. He
gives him the fake painting, and that's his blackmail against Kat.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
The painting thing, it could have been got lost with the painting thing. Honestly, if I'm being honest,
it was all about blackmail, Bob. Like that, she blackmailed Sater, and then Sater basically had leverage on her to always keep her trapped. And I think that's the whole like, it's like the big theme of the movie. Like the reason Sater is okay with ending the world is because if he can't have it, no one can. and that's why the painting is like just a symbol for that.
That's something I just didn't pick up on that well, I think, the first time going through. And I think they do a good job of explaining it, because I think there's enough scenes and enough dialogue about it. I just, for whatever reason, with my first watch through, I just didn't pick up on it. So I do need a second watch, I think, to really get it.
They also kind of misdirect you in that scene, because the idea is that he's going to use the fact that the painting is fake as leverage over Kat, and, you know, convince her that he's going to tell her husband that the painting's fake. He learns from her that he already knows it's fake, and instead he's using it as leverage over Kat. So they do kind of twist it on you within
that was
like a
cool.
minute of introducing the whole thing. So something I wanted to bring to your guys' attention. Are you familiar with the Seder Square? You ever heard of this?
No.
Never.
I hadn't until about 2 days ago. But the Seder Square is a word square containing a 5-word Latin palindrome. It features in both early Christian and in magical contexts. The earliest example of the square dates from the ruins of Pompeii, which some scholars attribute to pre-Christian origins. Basically, it's a 5x5 word square. Those words are Seder, Arepo, Tenet, Opera, Rotas. And when organized in a 5x5 square, when you read those in any direction, it's the same 5 words. And all these words appear in the movie. Seder, obviously, being the villain in this movie. Arepo is the name of the Goya forger. Tenet, obviously, name of the movie, name of the organization. Opera, referencing the opening scene in the Kiev Opera House. And Rotas is the name of the security group at the Oslo Freeport. So Nolan took this old-ass Latin palindrome thing and put every piece of it in the movie somewhere.
Okay, I would have
That's cool as
never.
shit.
That's like awesome. I would have never. I could have watched this a million times. Would have never understood that. He's always done this though. Well, not always, but he did this in Inception. Like all the characters' names, like Maul and even Leo's name. I don't have the names
Cobb.
up right now, but Cobb. Like all of them have these names that are like big in like ancient times, and they're just super specific. So I think he does take the time to like think of these things, like, which is another point, like, to his credit, like why this movie will live on and forever, I think. But that is so cool to me. Like just another little. It's not even an Easter egg. It's just like
Here's
it's just
my
something
question.
cool he was able to add.
Here's my question. Do you think that's where the movie started? Like the idea he found out about this ancient square, and is like the idea of the movie came from that? Like, how do you add that later to the, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like you almost have to, that's got to be the starting point, right? How does that get added midway through the movie?
If he's doing research into
a good point.
palindromes, maybe that comes up and then he incorporates all these names. I mean, there
It
are
just
just
seems
names.
odd. I just feel like that the idea to have that in there had to be very early on.
I'm sure it definitely could have been.
Because the whole idea of things being like front to back and like, I don't know, it's the same both ways, and I don't know, it's forward and backwards, and all the things about, you know, inversion that square relates to. I just feel like he probably had these ideas. Like that was one of the inspiring ideas, I'd say, for the movie.
I totally agree with you, Bob.
Like it wasn't where he started. He didn't say like, "Oh, that square thing's cool," but like it definitely was in his mind where he's like, "I want to somehow incorporate this into a movie." You know, like
it's a time travel
interesting
movie, but it's not a basic time travel movie. And like he probably, I don't know. I'm kind of with you, Bob. That like I think he saw that and then thought of it. In
It
terms
inspired
of
a
movie.
movie.
Just like exactly like, and he was like, "Well, I'm going to use that all over the place," because there's themes of that all over the place. Then, like Jim was
Yeah.
pointing out, it's just. I don't know. I think that comes very early on. Maybe he comes up with like trying to come up with a time travel movie, like, and then
And
like this.
he was
it's
looking
just
for this is probably like
inspiration
one of his first things he thought about, which is crazy to think about. Like where a fucking visionary like that gets inspiration from, and it ends up like something like this. That I think is so fucking cool.
Definitely one of the neater things that I came across in my research here. The most useful thing I came up with in my research, which I won't be able to explain audibly, is basically the science behind how the inverting machine works. You know how they walk in one way, walk out the other way?
Yeah, I was super confused by that.
It is very confusing, and part of the confusion I realized after looking through this is because we see different perspectives. There's sometimes where we as the audience follow the person in and out of the machine, but then there's other times where we're a third party observer, and even as when we're a third party observer, sometimes they're going in the machine for the first time, sometimes they're coming out of the machine or like uninverting, and that changes what happens to the perspective
Does
of the
the color
third person.
Does the color matter? The red and the blue? Does that have anything to do with it?
That's more just visually.
That's just to help us out. Yeah.
Okay.
Let you know what's going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, because as a third party observer, sometimes when if someone goes in to invert themselves, when it opens back up, you won't see anything. It'll be like they disappeared. But then if they uninvert themselves, like John David Washington does at the Oslo Freeport, then two of them come out of nowhere when you didn't see anyone go in. And like it makes sense when you actually like sit down and read an infographic and think about it.
That's something that I'd love to see information like that, or read an article or watch a video and then rewatch the movie and then really pick up on those little nuances.
My only other like general thought, nothing too specific, is that this is the coolest James Bond movie ever. I've taken it upon myself to start watching the Daniel Craig James Bond movies. I thought Casino Royale was fine, Quantum of Solace was pretty dumb, and this has a lot of like spy movie, James Bond movie kind of elements to it, but it's so much better than either of those movies.
It's funny that you say that. I've never seen those movies, but I don't know, it does have the sense of like it's a huge spy movie about ending the world, but I don't know, it gets lost as being a spy movie because of the inversion and because of the world you're just brought into. But that's funny that you see it as like that kind of movie.
The concept for this movie is so fucking sick. Like, it's so fucking cool.
Imagine if like we came up with this. And they would laugh so hard and just be like, you have to be Christopher Nolan to come up with this.
I was thinking about that. I'm like, how does this start as an idea in Christopher Nolan's mind, and then he's able to articulate it to a studio, to his other producers, to production people, to camera operators, to his actors. I'm like, how he's able to do that, I'm not even remotely sure how it's possible.
Let's go back to, I've said this before in the podcast when I talked about Inception. I think Inception was like the thing on his track record that got studios to be like, okay, go for it. You know what I mean? Like, we've made the joke that this is Inception with time travel, but he made Inception. He was able to pitch that to you know, a studio, able to get his actors to perform that movie and make it amazing. And that's why Inception walked so that Tenet could run. That's what I'm basically trying to say right here. Like, he couldn't have made Tenet before Inception because I think Inception was such a mind-blowing, confusing movie, and it clearly worked. And now, like, studios, I truly think that he probably walked into the studio or the execs or whoever he's talking to, and he literally pitched it like that. He goes, remember that movie I did that was really cool? I'm going to do something similar to that, but I'm going to involve in time travel, and I'm going to call it inversion. And he probably, there's no way he could have explained this to people. They had to have went off of like face value.
Yeah,
they had to went off his name. They had to go off his track record. They had to go off of the stars that were in the movie. That's probably how it worked. I guarantee he probably had stars attached. He said, yeah, I got Michael Caine. Remember him? He's in all my movies. Like, that's probably how it started.
I doubt it was even that, because like to that point,
they probably just let him go.
It's funny, like, because like another thing about this movie though, I'm glad it's not like Leo or your boy Tom Hardy in the main role.
Part about
like, I'm glad
movie.
It's John David. Like, the only character that's repeated from all of his movies that he does is Michael Caine, and I'm glad it's fresh characters, and it
favorite.
Exactly right.
It just because doesn't this feel like this could be Leo and Tom Hardy easily, and just be?
It could have easily been that. Like, it could have easily been Tom Hardy in. He just plays the Robert Pattinson role. Like, that's
perfect.
Yeah,
that is
exactly.
Tom Hardy basically.
And I'm just glad it's not. And I'm like, it would have been cool. Don't get me wrong. If you would have told me Tom Hardy and in Tenet, I would have been like, fuck yeah. But I'm just glad it was fresh faces, and it was so cool that he didn't
It's the new
use
Hollywood.
huge names. Yeah,
It's the new Hollywood. John David Washington,
Yeah.
I think, had his star. We talked about how this could have been a star-making performance. It could have been a star-making performance for the masses if this movie came out in theaters. But his actual star-making performance was Black Klansman, and that put him on the map for me. So you put him, he's new Hollywood. Robert Pattinson, we mentioned it. People think he's the Twilight guy. He's not. He fucking for sure is not. But like, he is still like new Hollywood. Like, he's being taken seriously as like a new actor, like an up and coming actor, even though he's been in the game forever. But people just look at him as the Twilight guy. Now people are looking at him as a real actor, and like, but he's still like up and coming in that sense, where people are finally seeing him as not the Twilight guy, but like John David Washington, Robert Pattinson, like those two together. Like, I remember when I saw that in the trailers, I was just like, holy shit. Like, I'm actually so happy it's like a new face with an amazing director like this, that you know they're going to put out some good work. Like, it just makes you happy because like you look at them and you're like, that's probably the future. Like the next big Christopher Nolan movie, we'll probably be saying, oh, I hope they don't put Robert Pattinson and John David Washington in it. I hope they put like these new guys in it, you know?
I feel like either one of them could just have a side role then, or like a role where they're in it for like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And not like for the whole movie, and it'll be sweet. Like he's just collecting new guys to be in his movies for like the next 10 years.
This does feel like the start of his new breed, you know? Like,
You guys want to solidify your positions on your Nolan scales? I'll say it.
oh,
I
that's
know
hard.
it's new. I know it's hot. This might be number 2 only to The Dark Knight
Wow.
for me.
Oh, that is a tough one. You say you have Dark Knight 1, Jer?
Yeah, I think I got to.
That's really tough for me because Dark Knight honestly like defined my youth.
Do you need me to go actually, Bob? Because I actually wrote it down. I just got
okay,
to the notes.
no, you go then. Yeah, you go.
So I put this as, just watching it, it's my 4th favorite. So, you know, obviously Dark Knight and then Interstellar are my
Interstellar.
2. So it basically comes down to this or Inception, right? And then, so my thinking is, so what I wrote is, this is probably my 4th favorite Nolan movie just after the first watch, because like all his movies grow on me. Interstellar was just some movie I had watched once, and now it's my 2nd favorite movie. And then, so this movie could easily like move into my top like 2. Like this could move into it. Inception is just, I've lived with it. It's sat with me so long. Like, I feel like I finally understand it. I got to give it its credit. But Tenet could easily like pass 3 of those movies. I don't see it ever passing in Dark Knight just because what that movie has always been to me. But this movie could become my 2nd favorite movie by the time, like in 10 years, when we're like, when this podcast is the number 1 podcast on Spotify, you know, then I could be talking about this movie still.
I'll let you know, Ben, when you do finally watch The Prestige, you're going to have a hard time making that list again.
I know that's a great point. I still haven't watched it. Maybe I'll watch that movie and Dark Knight won't even be on my list anymore.
I just feel like I'm gonna have to put The Dark Knight as my number 1 because this is The Dark Knight. I literally just said it defined my youth. So Dark Knight is my number 1. So what this really comes down to for me is, do I rank this over Inception, the movie that I've compared it to 2 different times throughout this podcast? And I would have to say right now, no, it doesn't. But in the future, will it? I think there's a very strong chance that it will. I think if I were to rewatch this movie tomorrow, I might put it above Inception. I mean, there's obviously recency bias, but I just think that this movie is just more complex. And
I just love a movie that like tries to do something completely new.
Exactly, but that's the same reasons I loved Inception, but it almost makes
Exactly, yeah.
Inception feel dated. Doesn't it make Inception feel dated?
It does. That's funny thinking about that.
So I think I'm going to put this as my 3 right now, but I'm going to go 1 Dark Knight, 2, 3 as Inception, and then this. And I really think that if I were to rewatch this movie and do more research on it, it might pass Inception. And I hate to say it, I really think it might.
Jared, do you have Dark Knight 1, this 2? Then like, what do you have then? The Prestige? Am I the only person who loves Interstellar? God damn it!
I haven't like given Interstellar a good, full, devoted watch as an adult. I think the only time I watched it, I had watched the majority of it on a plane, but Chris Nolan's
Ooh,
sound
nice.
mixing doesn't work well when
No,
trying to listen
it
to
does
it
not.
on a
imagine.
plane. So
No, that's the worst. And it's a movie that's like never really on, so it's like tough, and I think you have to pay for it even now.
right.
So which is a bummer because I would watch that movie probably like once every 6 months if it was free.
But I imagine that will, mess my rankings up once I do finally watch it for real, for real. But like The Prestige is one of you're gonna feel like Tenet, where like it's not so confusing where you don't understand it the first time. But I got to imagine that watching it a second time is a completely different experience to watching it the first time. And I have only seen that one once.
That's how Interstellar is. You can kind of follow it for the most part, but there's just like the ending is so mind fucky that you need to rewatch it and just the way it is. Like, but that's I can't wait to watch The Prestige. But that's funny, Bob. Do you even like? Are these three just like Inception, this, and The Dark Knight? Is that like you're the only three you're coming in with? Like, I've watched Dunkirk, and like this Dunkirk doesn't even like register with those movies to me.
I add Batman Begins to it because I really
Yeah.
like Batman Begins. I just googled The Prestige just because Jeremy's talked about it before. I just wanted to just look up to see who was in it. I didn't know that David Bowie plays Nikola Tesla. That's enough to make me want to watch it. And Scarlett Johansson is in the movie. So Prestige is
Bigger. Why is that movie not bigger?
I can't believe it. When Jeremy was explaining it to me that it was a Christopher Nolan movie with Christian Bale, Hugh Jackman, Scarlett Johansson,
As
David
magicians.
Bowie, Michael Caine,
No,
all
really.
his magicians. Yeah, it made me want to watch it. Yeah, but like I really like Batman Begins. If I'm being honest, I just love that movie. I like that more than The Dark Knight Rises. Batman Begins is low key one of my favorite movies. It's just cool. It almost feels like a fucking ninja movie in a couple of ways. Like I don't know, I really like that. But yeah, I really do. I think maybe I need to look at more Christopher Nolan movies. I need to actually watch Interstellar when I'm not asleep, and I need to see The Prestige. And like I haven't seen Dunkirk. Like I haven't seen enough. I've just seen like the big heavy hitter Chris Nolan movies. But yeah, this I really like this movie.
All right, you guys have any fun? I could talk about this movie for another hour if you wanted to, but I know nobody's going to listen to that, so we should probably give our final thoughts here. We've already said we recommend it, but now that we're in the spoiler-filled section, just any final thoughts you have?
Yeah. Final thoughts. Neil dies. Kind of a sad ending. Can't wait to watch this 30 more times throughout my life and to never really understand it. But yeah, this is I'm glad this movie exists. I wish it came out at a different time. Wish they would have just pushed it back a year when the vaccine came out. But I'm glad this movie's in our lives forever now.
Yeah, I absolutely love this, and yeah, it's a movie I look forward to watching many, many times, and then probably after 5 or 6, I'll fully understand it. But yeah, I mean, we said it in the beginning. If you're still sticking around, yeah, recommend this to people. Honestly, let them watch it, let them try to understand it. It's just a cool thing to talk about. It's such an interesting movie. Yeah, love it, love the new stars, love everything about it.
Considering the reviews made me debate whether or not I should even purchase the Blu-ray or if I should just, get a digital copy or whatever. I now am very happy that I own the Blu-ray and I can watch it whenever I want because this is going to be one that I come back to, I think, fairly regularly. At least as many times as I've seen Inception, if not more times. So, well, thank you everyone for listening to just the three of us dumbasses again. We got one more episode coming out in 2020. We're going to be watching Wonder Woman 1984 that comes out on Christmas Day. And I think we're going to kind of just review 2020 as a year in entertainment. We're not going to do our end of the year awards yet. We're going to wait till January to do that. But I think we're just going to kind of take a look back. Some of the stuff we think went under the radar. Some of the stuff we missed that we want to get in before we do our end of the year awards. So we got that to look forward to next week. As always, thank you for listening. And remember, you've got a future in the past. We'll see you next time.